Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to FPC Radio Live. And yes, it's a little echoey in here. It's a little different looking on my screen, but we're in a bit of a transition period right now. I apologize if we're trying to get the FPC studios up and running, but we're gonna have to make do with what you got. And just because you do not see John's face up on the screen, I assure you, he is here. So to give the listeners a bit of ease and a little bit of comfort, John, please let them know you're out there.
I'm here.
Good. All right. And we just lost all of our viewers right now. So maybe that was not a good thing to do. No. Obviously, it's been a little bit of a hectic week. I am setting up a new area for us to broadcast in. And obviously, it is not set up yet. As you can see, it is a wall behind me that looks very much like a living room wall, and that's exactly what it is. So we're gonna have to make do with what we got because we could not miss another day. Hopefully by tomorrow, kicking off the NFL season very appropriately, might I add. We will be in the new studios and we'll be rocking and rolling, and of course we will be giving our season's picks for the upcoming season, which, John, it kicks off tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the Bills and the Rams, and just like that, we're back in the NFL season.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a long time coming, and finally it's here. And a really interesting matchup between the Bills and the Rams, the defending champs, against the team that right now is the favorite to win Super Bowl 57 in Vegas. So it should be quite an interesting matchup. And then we've got the full slate on Sunday, and then of course the Monday night wrap up.
Do you think, okay, first of all, I did see something over the last few days where Matt Stafford is dealing with some injury issues, which is kind of like always one of his knocks on him. He's, guy takes a beating. He's been a little banged up. Doesn't necessarily miss too many games. But the other storyline, I think that is just kind of going, look, if this were the Patriots, John, and I mean, in terms of being talked about, like the Bills are being talked about, I wouldn't worry about it. It's just, okay, it's the Patriots. They do this all the time. But you mentioned it already. The Bills, Super Bowl favorites. Josh Allen, MVP favorite. And the Bills are the talk of the town. They're ready to take it over. Years and years of frustration and disappointment all coming to head. Do you think they can handle this pressure?
I think they can. It's been a slow, steady build the last few years for the Bills. They made the playoffs in 2017. Remember, they kind of snuck in. They really didn't have much of a chance. They lost to Jacksonville. It was a really low-scoring game. Then they drafted Josh Allen, and he played some his rookie year, and he looked very erratic. They didn't make the playoffs. And then in 19, they got in as a wild card. In 20, they were right there with Kansas City playing in the AFC Championship game. And then last year, when they were considered a prohibited favorite to win the division and maybe win the conference, they struggled at times, remember, but they finished strong, blew out the Patriots in the playoff game, and then lost that heartbreaker to Kansas City. I think they can handle this. The only question I have, and I like Josh Allen a lot, I think he's one of the 4 best quarterbacks in football, is his inconsistency. You don't see that with Brady and Rodgers, and you see it less with Mahomes. I mean, when you see Josh Allen, when he's on, he'll have 120 passer rating, he'll throw 4 touchdowns, he'll run for 1, and he looks like John Elway reincarnated. Then he'll follow it up for a game where his passer rating is 68, and he throws 2 picks, and he looks like a pedestrian quarterback. And that happens a lot with him, up, down, up, down, up, down. He needs to be more consistent. I think if he does that, they'll have that much better a chance. But yeah, I think they've added talent to that roster from last year that got so close to beating Kansas City in the divisional round. And I think if they had beaten Kansas City in the divisional round, they probably would have beaten Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game. And then this game Thursday would be if they had played it, would have been a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. But I think they can handle it. They have the talent. And again, a lot of this falls on the quarterback. The Bills kind of have a feel of the 2004 Red Sox a little bit. You know, how the 2003 Red Sox lost a heartbreaker to the Yankees in the American League Championship Series, and they hadn't won in 86 years, and they finally broke through. The Bills kind of have that type of feel to them, but like the 04 Red Sox, they're going to have to pull through and make it happen.
So you're calling them the idiots? I mean, I'm not gonna.
They can be the idiots,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm
and
not.
they're going to get down.
Oh, wait. Are we talking about? Are we talking about the players or the fans that jump through tables? What are we talking about
Yeah,
here?
pretty much that way. Yeah, I mean, Red Sox fans are a little bit nuts too. Especially back then when they had gone 86 years without winning. Yeah, so it could be the players, the idiots. If they all start growing beards and doing all sorts of crazy things, then maybe they really are channeling the '04 Red Sox. Maybe they'll get down 3 touchdowns in the AFC Championship game and perform a miraculous comeback and beat the Chiefs or whoever in the AFC Championship game, and then go and blitz whoever represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. But they're my preseason pick, but it's not like I don't think there's ever been a time really in the recent 20 years where you could go into a season and say, this team is just far better than everyone and they're going to just blow doors, because this is not the way the league is set up now with free agency and much more parity.
Well,
this isn't like the 89 49ers where you walked into the season and said, who the hell is going to beat them? Nobody.
Well, even at a time where that was a little bit more common, it really isn't that all that common in the NFL. Just the way that the game structure, the minimal so like over the course of an 82 game, or in the case of the Major League Baseball, 162 games, the stacked teams are generally going to be the better teams at the end of the day. They're going to have their ups and downs, but it evens out. In the NFL, it's not that easy to do, even if you're meant to be a dominant team, a la the Philadelphia Dream Team, domination, all this stuff. And what did they do? Absolutely jack squat. So, but yeah, you're right. There really hasn't really been that much. I think, like, even coming into the 2000, in hindsight, obviously we can look back and say the 2007 Patriots. But at the end of the day, like, not heading into that season, there were doubts. I mean, were they misplaced doubts? Probably, because, that's just kind of, we see how the media can work sometimes. And it's like, okay, is Randy Moss over that? Well, again, in hindsight, it took us about 5 minutes into that first game against the Jets to realize that he was not, and that this team was going to dominate. But that's about as close as you're going to get in the NFL, especially nowadays, to a team being just, from start to finish, expected to do now the irony, John, as we all know, the Patriots did not win the last game of that season. But for the sake of, like, I understand they didn't win that 2007 that last game, those last few minutes of that Super Bowl, but that doesn't change the level of domination they had, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say, oh, well, they still were great. No, look, I have my reservations because they win a Super Bowl, and it's always one of those great what ifs. But outside of the narrative building, yes, they lost that last game, but there's probably no more dominant team in the NFL over the last 20 years, 25 years or so, than that 2007 Patriots team. So
certainly the best team that didn't win a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when you're 18-0 and you show up on Super Bowl Sunday and you just can't get it done in a close loss to the Giants.
And it's not just this; it was just how great they were while doing it. I mean, their win margin was absurd. Like, one of my favorite stats, particularly from the offensive side, was that the Patriots had more touchdown scoring drives than they had actual drives, and that was counting kneel downs. You know what I mean? Like that's how
crazy.
Silly, absurd. Like, people think, oh, 2018 Kansas City. No, it wasn't even close. Like, it's hard to explain, but the difference, the openness of the offense, I think, opened more doors for this Kansas City 18 team to put up the points they did. And even then, with all the kind of favorable offensive adjustments made in the time since 2007, they still didn't hit a lot of those, like, advanced metric numbers that make you sit there and go, wow, that 2007 Patriots team was just, I mean, you're probably just never going to see something like that again. But anyways, we're getting a little off topic. The point is, with all that pressure, Buffalo, at the end of the day, this is a team that has, despite all the things they have done, they haven't done it yet. And I'm starting to sit there, and we've talked about this, John, before, about the finite window that they have. And I think some fans, and look, they're excited. I don't blame them. But if you take a moment to step back and realize this Buffalo Bills team has a very finite window for contention. And I mean that by, look, you go out and you get Von Miller because you want to win right now. That's not a long-term solution. And, that's a situation where money's going to end up meaning he's probably not going to play the entire 6 years of his contract there. You have other teams in the AFC that are getting better. We talked about it the last couple of years, in some cases when it pertains to KC, that their best chance to get their second Super Bowl in this era might have been last season when this AFC conference was still transitioning. Now you have presumably a Bengals team that's going to be in contention, a Ravens team, despite the doom and gloom coming out of a majority or some of these Patriots beat writers. This Patriots team could still be a pretty good team. Miami could be a good. So there's going to be far more obstacles for both the Bills and the Chiefs moving forward in this conference than there were the last couple of years in the post-TB era. And by that, I mean the post-Tom Brady era. Because we know that conference adjusted a little bit from 2019 and all the years that we saw beforehand to 2020, 2021, now 2022. It's shifting, John. And I think Buffalo certainly has every ability to go through and do this. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that I wonder if the pressure is going to ultimately get to them, because I think we'll find out soon. Like, if the pressure is not going to get to them, I think they're going to come out and they're just going to have just a strong start to the season. You know what I mean? Like, just on fire, just win after win after win after win.
The thing that's happened in the AFC is obviously the teams have landed really fantastic quarterbacks, right? Josh Allen in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, obviously Mahomes in Kansas City, Herbert with the Chargers. I mean, you can go down the list. There's just a lot of really good quarterbacks. So that sets those teams up to be at least contenders for a period of time. And Buffalo's one of those teams. But looking forward, the divisional round is going to feel like the conference championship round, right? Because you're probably going to have four really good teams facing off when we get to the divisional round. It won't be that team that you look at and say probably doesn't belong. You'll have a Buffalo, Kansas City. I think the Chargers are going to be tough, Baltimore, whatever. Just pick four teams. They should all be 11, 12-win teams. Although, in the AFC, you're going to probably see a lot of teams bunched together because they're playing each other. And, I don't think you're going to see necessarily a 14-3 team because the divisions are fairly strong and you're going to be facing good teams right off the start. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. They are the favorite. I wouldn't call them a prohibitive favorite, though, because they haven't done it. I mean, Kansas City still you have to look at, because even though they've had some failures the last 4 years, they have played in the AFC Championship game 4 consecutive years. That's pretty impressive. And they've gone to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. That's a pretty good run. Now, they may look back in 5 years and say, man, we blew some opportunities. And I agree with you. Last year was theirs. I mean, they had a sizable lead in the AFC Championship game against Cincinnati. They couldn't hold on, and I think they would have beaten the Rams in the Super Bowl. Again, that's all 2020. But, yeah, that's an opportunity they can look back and say we should have got a second Super Bowl in their 4th year of this pretty good run by the Chiefs with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you ask some people, it's the greatest run of all time. I'm starting to see. This is why I know it's NFL season, John. There's a couple
Who's
things.
Who's saying that, though? I mean, I'd like to – I mean, seriously. I mean,
there's I mean, they're mostly Kansas City fans, and I'm just kind of poking fun a little bit here because I have a few I guess normal Twitter accounts that pop up on my timeline from time to time, and certainly during football season, and one of which is look, you think I'm like a Tom Brady fan? Like, I at least try to, when push comes to shove, John, and you can laugh off air or mute your mic or whatever, but I try to be biased. I try to show some objectivity, okay? It's kind of hard with Tom Brady, though. So, like, when someone says, like, oh, you're just calling him the best because you're biased, I'm like, no, I'm not. I swear. I'm not like, when I always pick him to do these certain things, it's not bias. It's just 22 years of watching it happen. So, some could call me a little bit of a Tom Brady fan, correct?
Correct. I'll give you that much.
Okay, thank you. thank you for just leaving it at that. But this particular person has crossed the line of kind of having fun, a little bit of fandom fun, to just kind of a sad, over the top, constantly whining, like, playing victim and spouting off like these false narratives. You know what I mean? And that's honestly, that's what drives me nuts. So, like, one of the premises of one of his tweets recently, and I'm not going to say the handle. I'm sure if you go to my timeline on Twitter, you can figure it out, because I think I've quote tweeted a few of these. But one of the premises of the entire thing was, or the tweet was, no quarterback has ever taken criticism like Patrick Mahomes, blah blah blah, and it goes on to list all these, like, the accomplishments. And the funny thing about it was, John, now when you say something on Twitter, say what you mean. Don't sit there and say something, and when someone calls you out, be like, no, that's not what I mean. Well, that's what you said. You know what I'm saying? That happens quite a bit on Twitter. So this person says he's won. All he's done is win MVPs, win Super Bowls, and I'm like, what's with the S here? Well, why plural? Like, you don't have to. And this is kind of the point I'm getting at, is where, like, some people will look at this, and this is kind of the nature of how we react, and people respond to sports stuff on Twitter, is that it's all hyperbole. It's, oh, this is the greatest run ever. This, that, and the other. Well, your point stands, John. It has been a really good run. Now, is it the greatest run ever? No. I mean, has it been the has he had the best individual run of the last 4 years? Probably not. I mean, again, I like, it's not absurd to say he's not the best quarterback in the league right now. It's not an insult. It's not absurd. And there's certainly plenty to suggest that whoever says that is correct. So, yeah, they're on a really good run, John. And you don't have to have Patriot level and Tom Brady level of success to consider it being a great run. But at the same time, you can't sit there and try to pretend like everything that they do is on the level of what the Patriots did, and kind of you know what I'm saying? It's a double-edged sword. It's like, you have to appreciate what Kansas City's doing, like you're doing now, and saying, like, yes, they should still be considered one of the favorites in the AFC, if not the favorite. And I agree with your point. Like, Buffalo Bill has got Buffalo Bill, but the Buffalo Bills have gotten here based on, I don't want to just say hype. I'm not meaning it's just hype, because obviously we've seen them do stuff on the field, but a lot of it is hype. Whereas, look, Kansas City's here because they've done it, and you're gonna put faith in what they can do based on what they've done. Whereas with Buffalo, you're betting on those futures, John.
Right. You're projecting.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's what happens when you make picks, because it'd be easy to say, okay, the Bengals and Rams are going to meet again. Well, that just doesn't happen. I think the last time there was a repeat Super Bowl matchup, you have to go back 30 years ago with the Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And other than the Patriots, teams tend to, if they go to the Super Bowl one year, they don't go back the next year. And the same thing with Tom Brady. Obviously, he played in four out of 6 Super Bowls before last year, and then he was won 3 of his first 4 years. He won a Super Bowl. I mean, those are runs that are historic. I mean, whether it's the Niners in the 80s, the Cowboys in the 90s, certainly the Steelers in the 70s, and the Packers in the 60s. Those are really crazy runs when you win multiple championships. Kansas City's had a nice run here, but if it's just one championship, then they've had a run similar to maybe a little better than Green Bay's run, where they haven't gone back to the Super Bowl, but they continually contend. And, oh, by the way, Rodgers has won 4 MVPs in 11 years. And what exactly has that earned him in terms of winning championships?
Well,
nothing.
I was going to point to Philadelphia in the early 2000s.
Exactly.
4 straight NFC Championship game appearances. Now, they didn't win the Super Bowl, thanks to Tom Brady. But, very similar. I mean, people sit here and, obviously McNabb, a lot of younger fans think of McNabb now as kind of like he's kind of gone the Paul Pierce route on like commentary, where he's kind of hurt his sport brand because of, now he's not as prominent on screen as Paul Pierce is, certainly in the NBA, but people forget how good Donovan McNabb was, and not coincidentally, that team was also coached by Andy Reid. So, There's been a lot of really good runs right now. Yes, you're right. I mean, Kansas City the last 4 years has kind of taken control of the AFC. Now, again, part of it is the absence of Brady and the Patriots. I mean, that their departure from the year in, year out contendership in the AFC created a void that hadn't been there in a very long time. And the timing was good because, like you mentioned earlier, John, I mean, all these young quarterbacks are just happening to come into their own now at this time. So it kind of worked out pretty well for this conference. But it just creates, I think, a lot of obstacles for Buffalo, who now, they have to get the 1 seed really to have any sort of advantage. If not, it's almost like moot. It's like, okay, okay, so you don't get the 1 seed. Well, you're just like every other team, no matter if you finished with 13 wins or 12 wins or 11 wins. Eventually you're going to have to win a game on the road. And
sure.
if Buffalo is counting on only playing at home, then are they really Super Bowl contenders? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? Like, a team that's ready to win isn't going to care if they're going to play at home or on the road. So that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of obstacles. I think there's a lot of pressure that I think we're going to find out on Thursday. We're going to get a little bit of a glimpse as to what we're going to get. Like I said, I mean, if the Patriots were to come into a season and lay an egg on opening night, I don't care. Okay. Like, it sucks, and that week you're like, oh, okay, all right, you got to have to listen to, are the Patriots done? Again, I'm talking about during the Tom Brady era. Are the Patriots done? Blah 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 blah. Then I wouldn't care because, again, it's like, all right, well, we've seen this happen before. We always chalked September up as extra preseason. I certainly am not going to do that with Buffalo if they get off to a slow start, because why? I don't know. I don't know that. With the Patriots, I know that even if they started slow, it's not a big deal, because at the end of the year, it's like, are you going to bet against Tom Brady and the Patriots in any playoff game? Probably not. Buffalo, I think, has to be not perfect, but it's a very fine line, John. The very fine line between success and just another season in Buffalo Bills football history.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of real crazy games last year that if they had been able to win, they would have had the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But those are games you can't afford to lose. They lost on a block punt against Pittsburgh.
They almost lost the division to the Patriots because of how poorly
they won by one
playing.
game.
Yeah. So,
at one point,
again, very, very fine line between greatness and dud.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, before we go, and we're going to, like I said, hopefully tomorrow, obviously, we'll be talking more about this game and kind of getting into the groove of doing previews and all that stuff again, which I'm excited for, John, because we haven't been able to do that for quite some time. Actually, has been since January and February when there was actually football games. So, excuse me. Hopefully, that will be good to go tomorrow. And then by tomorrow, we can start doing our season picks. So we're going to give our divisional picks, actually, you know what? I want to talk about the MVP real quick. We still have a few minutes left. I want to maybe get your thoughts on who you're ultimately going to pick for league MVP, because I have actually made a monetary bet a few months ago on a particular person. However, that's more, just seeing what can happen, and maybe I'll get a little bit lucky. Your guy, Justin Herbert, I did put money on to win MVP. The odds were very nice, and I figured, hey, why not? I got some free bets, so why not? I thought last year, obviously, the award was wrong. I think the players might, based on who they voted the best player in the league, I think maybe they probably thought it was wrong, or at least some of them thought it was wrong. Either way, Aaron Rodgers is your two-time defending NFL MVP. I think this year is going to be a much more wide open race for that title. Do I think Rodgers and Brady are going to be in it? Sure. And ultimately, I might still end up picking Brady as my actual who I think is going to win or whatever pick. His odds just weren't favorable to put some money on, because, the expectation for him is obviously very high. But look, there's a lot of potential here. We've seen dark horse candidates like Jameis Winston, someone on ESPN, I think, picked that. I told you already, Justin Herbert, it could be a good option. Obviously you can throw in Patrick Mahomes. I mean, who knows? Derek Carr, maybe he has another 2016 season and actually finishes it this time. And of course, John, Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh. You never know. Mitch, okay, I can't even keep a straight face when I'm saying.
I know that one. I know that's not going to happen.
Look, I think he's a fine quarterback who do just well with Pittsburgh. I just don't think he's an NFL MVP. So, I guess the question to you, John, if push comes to shove, who are you picking to be the league's MVP for the 2022 season?
It's really boring. I'm picking the guy who's the favorite, Josh Allen. I mean, I'm all in on Buffalo this year, so I might as well go all in on Josh Allen as the MVP. I think it never really is that close because one guy kind of breaks away at the end and gets 35 of the 50 votes, and then maybe one or two other guys get a few of the other votes, and it's not all that close. Although in 2003 it was a literal tie between Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen. Again, he's going to have to clean up those poor games because at the end of the season, when the voters look at it and he has a 94 passer rating, that's not good enough for the MVP. You just generally have to break 100 for passer rating, if not higher. And, if he has 3 or 4 really bad games where he throws multiple interceptions, that's going to hurt his chances to win MVP. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen. He's the favorite, but I think Justin Herbert's going to be right there. I think the Chargers are going to be a powerhouse this year. And essentially it is a quarterback's award. And look, if Brady and Rodgers can get their teams to 13-4, they'll be right in the mix, especially with Brady, playing behind a really depleted offensive line. And with Rodgers, losing his best receiver, Devontae Adams, to the Raiders. I mean, if he makes it work and if Brady makes it work, they'll be right in contention. But if you said, here's $100, put it on who you think is going to win the Super Bowl, and you want to cash that ticket in early February, it would be Josh Allen for me.
Yeah, well, like I said, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to. I mean, I would like, obviously, I'm going to pick Brady because I picked him last year, and I like I said, I'll go to my grave believing that I should have been right. But my preferred, and this is how I as a fan want to see this season play out. And then this is, with the assumption, John, that the Patriots don't rise to the Super Bowl. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this may not be their year. Maybe it's coming. You don't know yet. I'm I guess on the more optimistic side relative to some of the other people around New England. But assuming that they are not in the Super Bowl, this is exactly what I want. I want the Bills versus the Buccaneers. Not because I think I'm all in on the Bills. I mean, I don't know if you want to tell Bills fans that you're all in on Cleveland last year too, and we see how well that worked out. So we'll keep that between you and me, John. But
right state, wrong team.
Yeah, right, exactly. But anyways, I want to see the Bills and the Buccaneers because, well, guess what, John? I'm a very petty person, and nothing would make my day than to see Buffalo Bills fans finally see their team get to the Super Bowl, only to get curb stomped by Tom Brady just one more time. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Like I said, tune in tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be back in the real studio, and everything will be rocking and rolling, and we'll be rolling all the way through to February. And then, of course, we can do some more fun stuff like this. We'll give our picks. We'll make some more bold predictions, and, of course, start working in some more prop bets. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FullPressNFL. Go to fullpresscoverage.com and, of course, fullpresshockey.com.